This is Ken Lichter from Coffee Crafters, and I'm going to show you how to change an element in an Artisan 2.5 or an Artisan 3. So any of the mini roasters, this element will work. This roaster that we're changing out has the old Artisan 2.5 element, and we're going to put the new element inside. The tools that you'll need for this job, there's only two. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver and a nut driver that is 11/32, or to make the job a little bit faster, you can use a socket with a 6-inch extension and an 11/32 socket. And this is a standard size socket like you find in a 1/4-inch drive socket set. I'm going to use some power tools to make this video a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and get started. So when you get your element, one of the things you're going to see is the element already has the lead wires on it. If you're changing out an Artisan 3e element that has the element in it, it also have leads on it. Just pull those elements out, leave them, use the new ones. When you pull these on and off a few times, it can open these up so they don't get a tight fit. So use the new leads that come with the roaster. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take this socket and put it up here. So we're going to take the bottom of the panel out. So to start this job, lay your roaster face down with the logo down on a flat surface, preferably on a towel so it doesn't scratch it. Leave enough room behind so we can take out these 8 Phillips screws on the back that hold the base in place. So we're going to go ahead and take those out and just put them right underneath the roaster, and that's where we'll find them when we go to put them back. And then we're going to take the base, pull it out, and we're going to just set it right down like that. And we're going to do the entire job with the base down like this. Now, if you ever have to change an electrical component, that's the process you go through to access all of these. It's really easy access. There are 2 sets of wires in here that we're going to unplug. The large red and blue wire, they have elements on them. They're marked. They're marked with the heat element. We're going to unplug those. The other 2 wires are motor leads for the motor. Now both of those devices are 220 volts, so when we go to put them back, it doesn't matter which order we put them back as long as we put them in the right place. Unplug the motor leads, and we're unplugged. The second thing we're going to do, now this is the part that you would do with the 11/32 socket or 11/32 nut driver, is we're going to take the loft motor out. It only has 4 832 Keps nuts holding it in place. So we're going to go ahead and take those out. And Anik, you want to come in here close so they can see what we're taking out. We're taking out these 4 nuts on this. So the motor stays on the device. We're going to take all 4 of those out. Once you take the 4th one out, the motor is going to come loose. So when you pull this motor out like this and tip it down, you'll see that it's plugged into the heat element inside. And we're going to pull those off. Now we're going to take this motor and we're going to set it aside to complete the job. Now if you look inside, you'll see the heat element. Now this heat element has the 2 leads over here. This is the old Artisan 2.5, and we're going to use the same nut driver. I'm going to use the drill to make it a little faster for the video. And I'm going to take 8 of those off. Okay, those 8 nuts are off, and now the element is loose. So I'm going to gather up all 8 of these nuts and I'm going to put them down here in the bottom of the roaster. We're going to be putting those back. A word of caution here. Now that we've taken the heat element loose, the heat chamber is free to float around in there. We don't want to push those studs out of the body. So I'll sometimes reach around and you can feel the chimney of the roaster, kind of hold that in place, and that's holding pressure against the body. And then I'm going to go in very gently and pull the heat element out. So you can see this is the old Artisan 2.5 heat element. And we're going to set that aside. Now we're ready to put this back in. Now one of the things you want to look at before you put it in, the old Artisan 2.5 had both of these leads over on the side. This has one lead on each side. This new element is actually two 2600 watt elements that are daisy chained together with these jumpers. We're going to put these leads on top. The hardest part of this job is getting the wires in the motor plugged back into it's got to reach in there and feel it. That's probably the only part that's a little bit difficult. Now when we go to put this back in, you'll notice that there are these T-bar bumpers here that keep the elements from hitting the side. We're going to real carefully put those into place until they're inside the heat chamber, and then slide it in real gently and position the heat element over the 8 studs that are through the floor. Now I'm going to take a Kep's nut and I'm going to put one in one of the corners. In this case, it doesn't matter which corner. One in the upper right, the lower left, and I put those in place. And I'm going to secure those. I'm going to go ahead and tighten down those two. And what that's going to do is that's going to hold the heat element in place. And it holds the heat chamber in place so the heat chamber can't move around. So now our element's in place already. So I think I'm going to run around the other side here and reach in here and put our other 6 nuts back in place. And you notice when we started this job, we went ahead and took the power cord off the roaster because I've left them on before and you can do it, but it's much, much easier if you take the power cord off. Gives you a little bit more room to work. So I have my other nuts started there. We'll go ahead and tighten those down. All right, our new heat element is in place. Now I'm going to take the motor. On the motor, we want to make sure that we have all of the slack pulled right up against this rubber bumper so that we have as much slack on the inside as we can. And that's going to help us when we go to plug in the heat element leads. And that is the most difficult part of the job, is reaching in there. So to start this job, we're going to put the motor back in with the green ground wire in the lower right-hand corner. So we're going to go ahead and you'll see, look in there. Unique, can you get in here and see a shot? We have 4 studs that this motor base is going to go over. There's one on all sides here. And all we're going to do is tip this down in place and get it close. We're going to grab these lead wires one at a time and reach in there and plug them in. Okay, mine are already plugged in. And then I want to get in there, if you have a flashlight handy, we're going to get in there and make sure that they're plugged in, because if they're not plugged in tight, then your element won't work. And then we're going to place the motor base over the top. And there are 4 832 nuts that we're going to put in. And remember, when we put the lower right hand side, make sure we put this ground wire back over the nut. See, we have the ground wire in place there. And one more in the upper right hand corner. Left-hand corner. There we go. So we'll tighten these down. All right, so we got the element in, we got the motor in. Now all we have to do is plug our 4 wires in. These 2 heavier wires over on the right-hand side, and they'll say element on the leads. Those plug into the little wires coming out of the heat element inside the heat chamber here. It doesn't matter which side goes to which because it's 220 volt, and with it we can reverse those and it'll still work. Got those plugged in. We have the 2 motor leads. They both say motor lead on them, and they go out on these black wires coming out of the electrical motor. We're going to plug those in. All right, so now we're just gonna double check, make sure our wires are plugged in, everything looks good. All right, and we're ready to close it back up. When we close it back up, you'll see that all the wires go through the floor and the little rubber grommet. So as I tip this forward, I'm just gonna feed those wires through there a little bit. And one thing to note, when you put this into place, tip it out like this, and we're gonna make sure that these wires in here go up underneath and make sure they're not catching on anything. And it slid right back into place. And now we can go ahead and put the screws back in the floor. We'll secure a couple of those to get it in the right place. Slide this up, put the last two in the bottom. And that's it. So the job is complete. We just put in the new heat element. So what you want to do is put your cord back in, take it over and test it. So when you plug it in, what I like to do is leave the hopper off, put the hood up, and then turn it on, turn the heat all the way up. And if you glance inside, you'll see the elements. On this one, there's one element in the front and back, as we had two elements that we daisy chained together in there. Make sure they're coming on, and you'll be good to go.